We are back on Morning Line. With me this morning is Metro Nashville Vice Mayor, the Vice Mayor. That would be Jim Shulman. And so it's good to see him. And boy, I always knew Jim for years from covering stories, and always one of the more cordial and very, very helpful people I've dealt with in government. And now I've come to get to know you a lot better. He brought me birthday cake last week. Not for me. It was my birthday. It was his, and happy birthday.
It was red velvet cake. It was really good.
It's good. Thank you. Anyway, it's good to see you again. He's in studio with us this morning on Morning Line, taking calls and questions as we're talking about phase 2 of the reopening in Metro and other issues as well with where we're going from here. We've got Daryl next on the horn on line 2. Daryl, good morning. Hi, Daryl.
Yeah, hey, good morning, Nick. Good morning, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Hey, Daryl.
I would like to say that I think you and Mayor Cooper are doing a really great job. I have a problem with people thinking that they can kind of flaunt the law or decide that they're going to do what they're going to do, and they don't want, any type of government regulating them. I think it's kind of selfish. My parents died not too long ago, and as much as I miss them, I would hate to see them in this environment right now with some of the sicknesses they had, not being able to see your parents as they may be leaving this world. So I just think a lot of people are basically selfish. I really do at this point. And it's also become a political wedge as well, and we can see pretty much it's a partisan type thing. And a lot of things are just based on, let's get this economy going. If it doesn't work, great. But I don't want to be in a second lockdown by the end of the summer. If I'm gonna be in lockdown, let this be it. And the Lieutenant Governor of Kentucky said something like this: well, people are gonna die anyway, and we just need to keep going. To me, for him to say something like that, and for other people to be so selfish, I think it's a shame. But big props and kudos to the Vice Mayor and the Mayor as well. Thank you. Have a good day.
All right. Thank you for your call.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it was the Lieutenant Governor, maybe not in Kentucky, but in Texas, who said that, and then kind of pulled back on his statement. I mean, Daryl makes a valid point. Again, how do you? In a country that gives people freedom to do what they want, which is what makes this country so great, how do you deal with this? I mean, we're learning what people do during a crisis like this with the pandemic. So maybe put it this way, Daryl. You look at what happened. You start. I know people are kind of documenting everything from when this thing started to when it started hitting America, and then how it spread, and what did we do, and we didn't have the mask at first, and then you couldn't find the wipes in the grocery store. I think you still can't find them, and the paper towels and the bathroom toilet paper and everything else. Somebody needs to be watching this stuff right now, and hopefully we're doing it, so that as we go through the summer, and if it comes back in the fall, we have a much better plan to deal with it. I certainly don't want to shut back down. Nick doesn't want to shut back down. I'm sure Daryl doesn't want to shut back down. But how do we prepare in case it comes back with a vengeance? But how do we learn from this thing? And what I was saying before was the mayor, was changing from phase 1 to phase 2. He changed some things in phase 2 after he watched. We're learning. I mean, I've never been through one of these things before. We're learning. So maybe there's a better way to get people to do what they're supposed to do. And, I tell you what, I mean, we're supposed to be watching other countries as well about how they did it, how they protect their folks, and it may be that we adopt some of those strategies. But I think we're learning every day.
All right, let's take Ed on line 1. Good morning to you, Ed.
Hello. I think the reason a lot of people aren't wearing masks is because the President of the United States refuses to wear one because he thinks it makes him look weak. Thank you.
Well, I mean, making choices, it's true. There was a contrast yesterday, and, politics, whether you want to admit it or not, play a role in this. And the president was at an event for Memorial Day and was choosing not to wear a mask, and I think Joe Biden, his challenger, was at another event somewhere and was wearing a mask. So there you have your contrast. And depending on the situation and where they are, you know, that choice is theirs. Like I said, common sense just has to come into play.
Well, you know, we look to our leaders for examples. I know I appreciate Governor Lee when I see him out wearing a mask. Mayor Cooper wearing a mask. You know, that's setting an example. You know, I'm Vice Mayor of Nashville. Our politics don't go as far as, or we can't really tell the federal government or, you know, our federal leaders what to do. They usually try to tell us what to do. But the best thing we can do is set an example of following the rules and what are we supposed to do. And this is probably one of the easiest things. And again, keep stressing, this is not necessarily for your own protection. It's for the protection of others. So when who was it? When Darrell was talking about the selfishness of people, it's like this is just about making sure that you're protecting other people. So it's just a simple thing of putting it on. I don't think it shows any weakness. I think particularly you start seeing people designing these things now. I mean, it's now a kind of a part of our
There's some cool
daily
ones
lives.
out there. I've seen some, some of the styles that they've come up with. There's some neat looking masks. Let's go to Ashley, I think. Ashley, good morning. Hi, Ashley.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I had a question regarding the overall way that the city council or Metro Council has been meeting. I just don't think it's the best way to meet and have good governance, because the people have a hard time giving their input and participating. Could you tell me what the rules are for meeting, the way it's supposed to be done under this pandemic? I thought they were only supposed to be meeting on urgent needs regarding government, but it appears like they're just passing all kind of rules and regulations. And sometimes I think a lot of them don't really adequately reflect the pandemic. Also, sometimes the timeliness with 3 readings and all that kind of stuff, it takes a long time to get ordinances passed that are timely regarding the pandemic. And I just don't think the whole thing is working good.
Okay.
I'll take my comments off the air.
Thank you, sir. And remind folks how the meetings do happen now. I know you've taken special steps to do this safely.
So by charter, we're supposed to meet the first and the third Tuesdays of each month. If you remember when this thing first hit, everybody was still rushing around trying to figure out what to do. We had a meeting on March the 17th, St. Patrick's Day. We spread everybody out in the chamber about between 6 to 9 feet apart, put council members all the way in the back where the public sits, left some room for the public, but encouraged them not to come. Went through at that point, I think it was about 8 essential resolutions that we needed for funding purposes, got a report from the health department, and then cleared out. Since then, the governor passed executive order number 16, which allows us to meet by teleconference. So the caller's point is well taken. I'm just telling you, it is not easy with 40 members and trying to do a teleconference. And then last week we actually went to video feed. It's not real easy. Now, and then the viewer would say, well, you should only be taking up essential matters of, just things related to COVID-19. If you go back and read the governor's executive order, it was left broad so that government could continue to do its essential functions of government. What does that mean? What does the council do? What are the essential functions of what the council does? Zoning legislation, it's working on the budget right now, passes contracts, grants, all those other things. So we just kept going, but if you notice, if you watch the council, particularly on the public hearing stuff, and on some of the more controversial pieces of legislation, those things have been deferred. They keep getting pushed further and further back. Have a public hearing on the budget on June the 2nd. We are working on that. We were working on it over the weekend to try to figure out how best to get as much input from the public as possible. A lot of people are very interested in this budget, obviously. How do you get people to get into the chamber properly, or call in so we can get the proper feedback. We can get 25 people now in the chamber in a meeting room. We're trying to figure out how all that stuff works. So we're trying to figure out how all that stuff works together to make sure we can listen to the public. And Nick, what I'll say is on public hearings on zoning legislation, because we've been pushing off stuff, you know, trying to do a little bit more about not having so much going on, our calendars are backing up. So part of our job was to keep the essential functions of what we do as the city council and as the government. We can't just shut everything down and not do anything. The city is still functioning. So we wanted to do as much as we could. Some of the more controversial stuff, again, we pushed off. June the 9th, we have a public hearing on zoning matters. I think there may be 60 and plus bills coming to us that we're going to have to hear maybe in one night. And we may have to figure out, we may have to have 2 nights. I don't know. We're looking at that right now. But
yeah. All right, listen, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more comments, questions. Someone asking about when's Bridgestone going to open up again. We'll get into some of that and more in our final segment with the Vice Mayor right after this.